2013 update of the biennial budget will please come back to order. And representing the Department of Public Works, we have the Director, Ms. Bonnie Tewin. Please proceed.
Thank you. The directions were to keep it to 3 minutes, so I will do my best to keep the presentation to 3 minutes. This was a slide provided by OBM, and I think this is the simplest to understand and the most telling as far as where our revenues are and where our expenditures are. One of the questions that I was specifically asked to answer was our staffing levels. We did reorganize in 2011, so most of the people are in the divisions, sections that they need to be in. We have had some retirements. Specifically today, I've received 3 letters of resignation for upcoming retirements. We've had some resignations.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Did you pass a handout?
No, it's on the screen.
We don't have anything.
I'm sorry.
There we go. Okay.
And then we've made some adjustments, like Director McCloof has said that the law department is now, or I'm sorry, the risk management department is now under the law department.
Right.
In 2013, the end of this year, in 2013, we will have additional staff that we just recently hired, some of which have accepted positions but will not start until, one will start next week, another one will start in a month, third one will start in January. We are proposing to hire more sanitary crew members, because we have added more services. We've took on additional services in Shaker Heights and North Olmsted for our sanitary division. We are in the process of hiring a vet tech for our kennel, and also replacing our kennel supervisor at the kennel that has resigned in 2012. In 2013, thanks to Director Benders and the fact that he likes to share, the airport will hopefully be transferred over to Public Works. I believe you have that on your agenda with committee. So as far as our staffing levels, from previously we are down some staffing members, but we have hired some and we anticipate to hire some more. We also anticipate hiring some custodial staff. We were kind of waiting. We've had some retirements and some resignations on the custodial level. After the reconsolidation of our property, we were trying to see what the best level for our staffing needs on the custodial side. We believe we have a understanding of what that will be now and in the future. So we are in the process. We have requested 10 new custodians, and we're looking to add an additional 5 to that for a total of 15 new custodians to bring on board. Our budget, we believe, keeping in mind our budget, we receive our revenues from the license plate tax, gasoline tax for a road and bridge section, reimbursements from federal projects. On a sanitary side, our revenues are generated through property tax, addition to the property tax for our sanitary services on the tax duplicate. And then for the trades for our buildings maintenance, those are chargebacks to each of the individual departments for the buildings that are there. Looking at this particular slide, you can see our revenues and what our expected expenditures on. So the key being our expenditures are less than our revenues. One of the other questions that I was asked to answer was, with the building consolidation, how does that impact our capital improvements on our buildings? What we did in July, of this past year is we put a request out to all of the directors, the judges that currently reside in buildings that the county owns, asking for any improvements that they would recommend. We received those the end of July. We went through a process of reviewing those requests, categorizing those requests, and prioritizing those requests. From that, we're putting together our capital improvement budget. We obviously prioritized buildings that we knew we were going to keep, particularly the Justice Center. It's a large building, over 1 million square feet of square footage. The thing that we discovered early on is that we need to do a full analysis of what we have at the Justice Center. It's a building that's 40 years old that has not had any major improvements to that. So we are in the process of hiring a consultant to do a full analysis of the Justice Center. That should be a 6-month analysis. In July of 2013, we should have a really good idea of our capital improvements that we have to do probably for several years to come in the Justice Center as far as improvements go. The capital projects that we will be working on in 2013 is we have a ADA upgrade to the old courthouse. We have elevator renovation in the Board of Elections. We have 2 projects that we're proposing in our Huntington Park garage, and the jail kitchen renovation should be starting soon. We will be moving the public defender from leased space on Prospect over to the new Juvenile Justice Center on Quincy. There was a floor that was not built out, and that space will go to the juvenile public defender. And then, as the sheriff had talked about, the Justice Center rehab, as far as the 120 section with the combination of the Cleveland jails, will also be under construction in 2013. There's been some discussion with the IT department as far as relocating them from the Sterling building. We believe we'll have to definitely do design and start construction on that relocation to the medical examiner's office in 2013. And as the medical examiner had talked about earlier, we're also doing some work in the medical examiner's office. So we have a lot of construction that's going to happen in 2013.
Okay. Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, Ms. Simon. Okay. Councilman Rogers.
I just had a question on the Juvenile Justice Center. You mentioned that there was a floor that hadn't yet been built out. Is there a lot of vacant space still within that building?
Once the public defender moves into that space, I don't want to say there will be no additional space, but there would be very limited space on what else can be built out there.
Are there still open floors?
No, there are not.
Okay.
Director, in the financial update that you showed us, there's $16,821,000 in proposed updates for the 2013 budget. Can you tell us what those consist of?
I'm going to try, and I don't because I'm not an accountant, I don't necessarily understand it. What that is because we have an operating...
Do you want to use a lifeline?
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a very quick answer, Mr. Chairman. Remember yesterday we talked about the major budgetary changes. This is to reflect the sanitary operating transfers to the project funds in the districts. That's almost all of it. I think it's 16.3 of that amount. The rest are some various base changes along the lines of the criteria that we discussed in our presentation yesterday.
Okay. And Director, my second question is that both 2012 and 2013 show a very good thing, an excess of revenue of about 10 million or a little more over expenditures. And my question is where does that additional money accrue and what will it be used for?
We have to be very careful with how that's presented. Some of our projects are multi-year projects, so they may have been budgeted early on, but they weren't spent. So they could just be projects that are a multiple-year project. If we do have balances, that has always been my initiative is to reduce our operating costs so we can get that money into bricks and mortars, road resurfacing, upgrades to our buildings, whatnot. So if we do truly have a balance, the goal would be to get that into the bricks and mortars.
Other questions? Councilman Jones.
The new pavement policy, that's built into your budget, is that?
That is correct.
Does that end after 2013?
The first year we were programming with the new pavement policy was for 2013, so it would be 2013 and 14 is when we're programmed.
As we work on other legislation, and specifically the draft of the maintenance policy, will those things be built into the budget, or would that have to be additional money if those things come to fruition?
There was some discussion that I had with Councilman Greenspan as far as when we look at maintenance, countywide maintenance programs, how we address that, whether it's a payback from the local communities. The benefit to them would be that they're buying in volume, so it's a little bit cheaper, or if it's an expense that we take on. Because we have some of those balances, and I believe that we have some opportunities to spend more money on the bricks and mortars. I think there's some opportunity there to spend more on, I'll call it traditional maintenance that we haven't done on a normal basis.
Okay. At the purchasing board the other day, there was a contract for renting a chipper, leasing a chipper to use for with other municipalities. Do you see a need for the county to purchase one?
We currently have a chipper. The reason why we rented that chipper was because of the storm. We had a couple of different communities that asked for our assistance, and we felt it was appropriate that we go out and rent the chipper to help the local communities in that particular situation.
So you just need a supplement?
Correct.
To help. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Greenspan? Okay. Any other questions for Public Works? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next on our agenda is Director Mowry.
Good
Or
afternoon,
Michael
everyone.
Young.
Michael Young, standing in for Jeff Mowry, who's
Okay.
on vacation.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. First, I'd like to draw your attention to the IT organization as it stands as a result of the ordinance changes that happened throughout this year. Next, we can go to the staffing levels. As we entered the 2012 year, we were at 199. You see the reductions based on vacancies, terminations, layoffs, new hires, and we're currently sitting at 176. This is inclusive of all the personnel resulting from the IT consolidation that we started earlier this year. Councilman Miller, you want me to pause while you guys
do we have a handout?
Yeah, did they? Oh, we don't have a hard copy? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, let's start over again then. My apologies. Okay. All right, up here again is the IT organization as a result of the ordinance that has passed throughout the course of this year.
Apparently, we do not have hard copies for this one, so we'll have to use the screen.
All right, my apologies, I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. Save on paper? Yeah. Okay. All right, then, again, my apologies. Staffing levels, we entered this year at 199. We reduced 15 vacancies as the result of retirements and resignations. We had 2 disciplinary layoffs. We had 10 layoffs in general. We've had 4 new hires, resulting in a current head count of 176. And that's inclusive of all the IT organizations throughout the county that are currently being consolidated into the centralized IT structure. Next slide. The budget changes for this year. We have no significant budget changes projected for 2013. We believe we're going to be operating flat at $15.7 million. Significant IT projects for 2013. I could go through each of these individually, but to keep us on track for time, I'll pause here and let you take a look, and you're more than welcome to ask any questions related to any of these that I can answer for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Just,
Good.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Jones.
just a general question. What is the number, the dollar amount for the IT consolidation, all the monies that has been drawn from Public Works and all the departments we've heard?
I'm going to use my lifeline. Can you answer that?
Mr. Chairman, the general fund budget is the $15.7 million. So we're realigning resources from other agencies, namely fiscal office. There's going to be some areas in justice and public safety that come over. The separate HHS IT component, which is I think $3 million, that's still remaining funded out of the HHS operating fund. So the $15.7 million is the main general fund budget that you see in the presented budget for 13, and then the additional $3+ million on the HHS side is a separate funding source. But the main line, consolidated IT budget that we've discussed, is flat. It's $15.7 million. There may be some other moves from some areas in justice, but it's going to be a net wash on the general fund because they're coming from existing general fund budgets to the new IT budget.
Thanks, Matt.
I would add to that now that the IT has been centralized into a separate general fund agency, the IT costs have been backed out of each of the individual general fund departments where they had been previously. But in terms of non-general fund departments, those IT costs will continue to show because the general fund will charge those agencies in the non-general fund departments so that the general fund does not have to subsidize non-general fund agencies. And that actually accounts for approximately half of the $15.7 million. Okay, please continue.
Okay, that's if you have any questions regarding any of the projects for 2013. We're done.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Any questions by my colleagues? Okay. I would ask a question about tell us a little bit about the automation for the Board of Revision.
Unfortunately, that's not in my area of expertise. That's the development group.
Okay, well, we can find out about that offline. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Director Benders to speak on behalf of the Department of Development.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Committee. Larry Benders, the Director of Development. Thank you for having me here today. You're getting a handout, which is the hard copy of the PowerPoint slides, and there's a spreadsheet, which is the budget detail. And I know I have 3 minutes, and you asked me 5 questions. So I've got slides on each of the questions, and then the budget detail is attached to. The budget is really question 3, but we can skip to it for a second and say the general budget for the Department of Development 12 and 13 is unchanged. Well, it's within $500. We spend $6.9 million of general fund money in 12, and the number will be in 13 the same. The only issue in the budget Department of Development is the Western Reserve Fund. That's the very last line of that spreadsheet that's attached, which is really not an expense. It's a capacity to lend. So that's the question in our budget. But $6.9 million in general fund spending year over year. Thank you. Proceeding now to the slides to address here are the 5 questions that you asked, and I will have a slide for each one. I'll repeat the question, the next one. What's the staffing level compared to a year ago? In April 11th of 11, when I started, we had 64 people in the Department of Development. A year ago, November 11th, we had 53 in the Department of Development. Today, we have 54. And of that 54, there are 2 on long-term medical leave, so their status is unknown right now. And we have 4 open positions that should be posted. They've been approved. That should be posted the next week or 2 as soon as we work out the last details about screening questions. And to anticipate the question, I would think those positions will be full by the end of the year. Once we get to post a position, once we post, it moves pretty well from there, pretty quickly. That was question 1. 2, excuse me.
And Director, on the 2 on long-term medical leave, are those included in the 54?
Yes, sir, they are. So actually, in terms of the real bodies in the department today are 48 people. Plus 4, plus 2 gets 54. Moving on. If a staffing reorg or alignment occurred in the last year or will occur in the next, please explain it. The next slide is you've seen this before. This is a blank slide. There it is. You've seen this before. This is the org chart when I started. The red group is housing. So what we've done is, consistent with the charter, we've tried to focus the activity of the Department of Development on economic development and not on housing so much. So you recall that on this chart, the positions in white, there are about 3 or 4 people who are really doing classic economic development. So they were buried in the department. So now, going forward, we're going to a more, and this is just functional, this is not people, a functional chart. So on the far left-hand side is an economic development department, which will focus on doing the loans, executing the Western Reserve programs, working with Jobs Ohio out of the state. So really have a focus on economic development. Then if you look at the next cluster of community development, you see housing is really down. It's really been de-emphasized as a function. It'll still happen, but it doesn't have the primacy that economic development has. So we're trying to align with the charter and make sure that we have the resources to deliver all the loan funds that we said we're going to do to deliver the job creation that we're signed up to do in the plan. So this is what the new organization is going to be: functional and a focus on economic development versus a focus on housing. Question 3, if I can proceed. Describe any proposed budget changes in the 013 update. As the spreadsheet before you has, there are really none. There are no real. 6.9 million in 12 and 13 in general fund. And then the only issue is the Western Reserve Fund, the $20 million, which you really carry forward from 12 into 13. But that's the only noticeable issue in the budget. Question 4 was, are any services for your department, agency, being added, reduced, or eliminated? Several things are happening. As Bonnie indicated earlier, we're talking about the airport moving, and you've asked for legislation, companion legislation. You saw legislation earlier in committee from development asking for the department to move airport out. Then you asked back for companion legislation saying, where does it go? So that is coming before your body. So there's separate ordinances that are taking that issue into effect. The summary for the airport really is we anticipate that Public Works would be managing the public work kinds of activity at the airport, the taking care of runways and grasses, and economic development would work on the businesses in and around the airport. What do they need to help grow, to expand, to build their business and do economic development activity with them, but not worry about how is the runway paved, are the lines painted appropriately? That's really more of a public works function. So I think that's what you'll hear in the coming weeks with the legislation. The second issue here is grant uncertainty. As you know, much of our activity is funded by the state or the federal body. Great news, we received $500,000 to increase in our home weatherization assistance program from the state recently, because we have one of the best programs in the nation in HWAP. Many other areas in the state couldn't spend their money, so it came back to us. So we got more time and $500,000, and that's about a 40% increase in our existing budget, which is about $1.2 million plus 500. So that's a wonderful tip of the hat to our ability to execute weatherization programs at a high level of excellence in the state. And then finally, as you know, the community development block grant has been decreasing over the years from Washington. So that is another kind of uncertainty as the block grant money goes down. It was down 16% this year. Then we are forced to make choices about what kind of services can we deliver under the block grant because we have less resources. So those are the issues in and outs, the puts and takes, if you will, in the department, in the services that we provide that are not necessarily general fund affecting. And the fifth, provide an update on the economic development plans for 2013. In short, our major focus is to complete the Western Reserve Fund. As you recall, the Western Reserve Fund has 11 products in it. We've introduced 5 of those products, and we've committed to come before council and show you the last 6 of those products in the next coming months. We were trying to get on a committee schedule, I think, for the 20th of November, which may not happen, but we have revisions to the first 5 plans, and we want to show you the next 6 programs so we can have a full suite of programs to lend against in the coming year. That's what our fundamental plan for 2013 is, and the results so far year to date have been very, very good. President Connolly saw this data the other day with the bond presentation, but if you look at the direct results of job creation, in 2010, the Department of Development did 27 deals that resulted in 173 jobs created. 2012, year to date, we've done 23 deals for $18 million and created almost 1,800 jobs, or played a role in 1,800 jobs being created. That's a tenfold increase in job creation. And that's with 20% fewer people, tripling the deal size, and a tenfold increase in job creation, and a fourfold increase in jobs created and retained. So with less people, we've really been able to affect the market. And our plan, as we signed up for in the economic development plan that you approved, is to have 2,000 jobs created in the next period.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
On that slide, the 23.8 million in loans since this government took over, the 2011 and 2012 numbers, what I can account for about 11 of them, 11 or 12 million. What's the rest?
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the council person.
Loaded question, since I didn't tell you the 11 or 12 I knew, but what makes up that money?
Absolutely. Sir, there are money from the Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund that we have. We loan out maybe almost $1 million in block grant money every year.
Okay, so that's just not the reserve fund.
No, sir.
Okay.
All funding sources.
And the reserve fund, I'll ask the question, I was going to ask it later. The reserve fund itself, on the analysis that you handed out, you had 2012 at $3 million. But I know we've done at least, the major projects I could think of are close to 11. We've done three at $3 million. We did the 1 at $1 million, 125 or 158, and a few others, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Those are the loans that have been approved, but the loans haven't closed yet. In some cases, we'll approve a loan and hurry up and do it, as you've seen that a few times. And then the company says, oh, we really don't need those resources yet. And so some of those loans have not closed, which is why they've not hit the books yet. But we're obligated.
So the $3 million here is we only have one closed deal?
We have $3 million committed through this year. That's correct. That's correct, sir.
Which
I believe that's AmTrust. I believe is the AmTrust deal. AmTrust is the one that's closed, sir.
That's closed. Okay, the others, the Phillips and the Lincoln Electric, the one we did, the 1.1, I'm drawing a blank on that.
Well, Phillips...
That one hasn't closed yet then either.
Phillips is not closed, but I believe Phillips may have been part Western Reserve, part Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund. It may have been combined sources.
Oh, we did? Okay.
I can't recall off the top of my head, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, let me ask one other question then. Shouldn't those, the outstanding loans, the ones that haven't closed yet, be rolled into the 2013 number?
Through the chair to the councilperson, yes, that's why the number in 2013 for the Western Reserve Fund, I believe, is $18 million, so the capacity is there in 13. It's below the line. If you're looking at the spreadsheet, it's below the line on the handout spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions for development? Councilman Jones.
Water controls, there was a $125,000 loan for a high-growth company. I believe it was a 5-year loan, and it was deferred for 5 years. Correct? Is that built into the $100 million fund, or did that come out of the $100 million fund?
Through the chair to the councilperson, I believe that was a North Coast Opportunities Fund loan.
It was.
So that was not from the Western Reserve Fund.
From the Western Reserve Fund, how much of the money that has been used to this point was forgivable?
Excuse me, I couldn't, was for?
Mike on. How much was forgivable? So far, how much of the $100 million, or what we have spent so far, what portion of that is forgivable?
Through the chair to the councilperson, my recollection is about $5 million of forgivable loans. However, there were repayments against some of those loans as well, so there was a revenue stream coming in before the forgiveness. But I'm recalling $5 million.
Is it fair to say we've loaned out 18 million? Is that right? Or 20 million?
On the chart, through the chair to the councilperson, yes, 18.8 I believe is the number, and that includes loans of all sources, not just the Western Reserve Fund, of which there'd be $9 million probably in total year to date against the Western Reserve Fund, so half.
So of that 9 million, 5 million was forgivable.
Through the chair to the councilperson, yes, some portion of that $5 million was available for forgiveness if the loan terms were met, the job creation was met, the number of years that the company stayed here was completed. Then the loan could be forgivable. That's true.
So that 9 million, 5 million is potentially forgivable.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Okay, is that
the exact
rate?
of the 9 million, 4.55 million of the 3 loans is forgivable. With 2 of them, the Ameritrust is not,
Correct.
or the AmTrust is not forgivable. Between the Phillips and the Lincoln, so between that 6 million, 4.55 million is forgivable. I don't recall the breakout between, one's 100% forgivable, and the other has the 1.55 million of being forgivable.
Thank you.
Just of those 2. But we also have some other, there's components of other loans that are forgivable as well.
So that's close to half of all of the Western Reserve money having been forgivable. Do we think that's a high rate? Do we think that will continue? What do you?
Through the chair to the councilperson, that is an excellent question, and that's one of the things we're looking at. One of the learnings we've had over the last year is how much interest, if you will, there's been in forgiveness. And so one of the things we're going to come back on the first 5 programs that are out there is talk about how we're going to handle forgiveness going forward. What's really required, and how do we make sure that we're making the best use of the public's money? It's a great question, and when we come back before you the next few weeks, you'll see how we're responding to the question of forgiveness. But the short answer is we don't expect much more forgiveness going forward at all.
Director, of the 18.8 million that's been issued in loan commitments so far, 9 million is from the Western Reserve Fund. The remaining 9.8 million, what are the funding sources for? I'm surprised that large of a number is coming from sources other than the Western Reserve Fund.
Mr. Chairman, the other sources would be the Community Development Block Grant, 3 loans, or at least 3 loans from the General Fund, some from Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund, Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund, the EPA Revolving Loan Fund, and that's all the sources, sir.
Okay.
And this information is on the dashboard that we send to you periodically.
Chairman?
Yes.
Just a challenge I've had on the CDBG money, and we've discussed this, is there are 4 communities within the county that can apply directly for CDBG funding, correct? It's Cleveland, Lakewood, Parma, and there's a 4th one, right? That can apply directly.
Sorry. Cleveland Heights.
And the challenge I have with that is they can apply directly, and if they get the grant, it's a grant. If they apply through the county's been loaning the money back to these communities, which I've been challenged that we're getting it for free, yet we're loaning it back out. So it's just this has come up in economic development, so those members who aren't part of that committee, the policy the county's had for a number of years, I personally don't think it's fair, but just I bring it to your attention when we talk about these monies being available and where they're coming from. Some of those funds are coming back because they're in the form of loans. Meaning, if the city had the ability to do it directly, it wouldn't have to pay it back. Right, it's a policy question, but just bring the issue forward. There's no action today to be taken. It's just a general statement, since we're talking about CDBG money as being a component.
That's fair. Comments noted. Councilman Germana.
I guess my follow-up on what Councilman Greenspan said is that if we're collecting the money back, that means that we can lend it out future. So it's actually creating projects. So whatever we lend out and collect, it's going to be available for someone other community to use.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I would agree. And I'll also make the comment that the way block grant works is the county acts as, on behalf of many communities, 54 communities, as an aggregator, if you will, for efficiency. And that's called the urban county. So what we try to do is make sure that then we can take that money in so they don't have to do that work, and then we can lend it out on some fair basis. And generally it's to benefit low, moderate income individuals. That's a primary requirement of block grant. And that's that's the duty that we take on as a representative of the urban county. That's why the money flows to us, as opposed to 59 communities competing for what might be $5 million.
Yes, please continue.
Mr. Chairman, concerning the 6 staffing vacancies, we have 2 out and 4 that need to be filled. I'm just wondering if some of those vacancies are in the community development area. And the reason I'm asking that is I've had some communication of saying that sometimes awarding these grants and so on is taking a significant amount of time. And I'm just wondering if it's because some of the vacancies may be in that department.
Through the chair to the councilperson, we will certainly address some of the speed and efficiency issues in some of our programs when we fill these grants, when we fill these positions. One is a grants coordinator position, which will just help the paper flow move much faster.
So that's a good explanation.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one, and I'll try to just stick to the budget, but one question. Many of these jobs are about high growth, trying to create high growth jobs. Has the department thought about high service, if for lack of a better term, high service? I'll even just throw out an example. We had concerns about payday lenders and other things, and from my own experience, I've seen how credit unions, small CDFIs, have combated those type of lenders just by outcompeting them. But their growth could really help the community. And I can't say how many jobs would be created, but it certainly would be a high service to the community as opposed to high growth. Had you ever thought along those lines?
Mr. Chairman, the way we get close to that, I think, is when we fund a call center, like an SP Data. It might bring 100 jobs in. It'll pay at $10 an hour, which is below the average for the county wage, but it provides much needed income for individuals. We did pass on we would say I call it a questionable lender. We've been approached and we said that that's not the right kind of business for us to support. But we are interested in people that jobs that pay $10 or $11 an hour. Although we'd prefer higher paying jobs, but all those jobs are needed in our community, so we try to fund all of those. If that answers your question, sir.
It's close. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We have already covered item 9, Office of Medical Examiners, so we'll go on to item 10, which is the Department of Internal Auditing. And Valerie Harry is the internal auditor.
We have an hour and 20 minutes, so you can take your time.
I thought I was going to be the short presentation when you mentioned you had 4. You had, what, 5 presentations for a long one? Was the short one. I expected I was the short one. Thank you for inviting me here. One of the things you've asked for is an introduction. Did I drop something? Oh, thank you. Introduction to internal audit. What you have here in front of you is a version of a presentation that I have recently given to the supervisors of Cuyahoga County over the past, I think there were 8 or 10 sessions. And it's just kind of a quick overview of the department and what internal audit is. So first of all, as I mentioned, I am the director of the internal auditing department. I began working with the county in May of this year. Teresa Reynolds is my audit manager. She started late August, and just today we started our interviews for our 2 staff auditor positions. As you know, we were created by the charter by Article 11. We do report through an audit committee form of legislative, kind of a legislative body. We're independent of the county executive, although the county executive does have a seat on the audit committee, and we are complying with 2 sets of auditing standards. One are Yellow Book standards, which are what's used for governmental auditing purposes, and the other are Red Book standards, which are the standards that guide internal audit processes. So this is a textbook definition of what internal audit is, but I guess the main thing to focus on is it is anything to add value and improve an organization's operations. And the way we do that is through making recommendations on internal control improvements, anything that we're looking at to improve efficiencies and effectiveness at the county level. In order to do that, we'll be doing 3 different types of audits. Financial related audits, that's in an organization or a department that may have its own revenue source. We'll be looking at revenues, expenditures, assets and liabilities of those departments. Compliance audits we'll be doing as well, and those would be more towards some of the federal programs, some Ohio Revised Code type compliance as well. And then operational or performance audits will be where we might be selecting a certain program from within a department and looking at whether or not it's achieving what it's meant to achieve. Just a quick overview of how we put together an internal audit plan. As soon as I get the staff auditors on board, we're going to be going out into the departments. We're going to be doing some risk assessments. We'll have a standard set of questions to go over with each of the managers within the departments. We'll then put together our plan, bring that to the audit committee for their approval, and start going out in the actual departments to get the field work done. We're actually in the process right now of, we've drafted an audit report. We've had our preliminary exit conferences. We're waiting for the response from the agency on one of the audits, which we hope to have done by the end of the month. We'll present it to the audit committee for their approval, hopefully within next week, and then be distributing that audit for public distribution when that's completed. That's kind of the overview of what internal audit does and what our plan is, where we expect to go. For our 2012 budget update, we are going to have a large surplus in 2012 because we only started operations in May of this year. We hope to have our other staff members in place by the end of this year. For 2013, what I would like to do is add an additional staff member, staff auditor in the summer. We're currently working with ISC to acquire an electronic work paper software package. That won't require any additional funding, and we hope to have that at least on a test basis in place also by the end of the year and rolling into next year. For our 2013 update, we had the 6% increase, which I understand is pretty much countywide for a healthcare increase. The only thing that we're asking is to reallocate some of our 2013 appropriation to move from contractual services into personnel services so that we can hire that extra person mid-year, which is a total increase. The 2013 budget is $3,563. See, I told you I would be this short presentation. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Questions for internal audit? Ms. Harry? Anyone? Councilman Greenspan.
Just one question.
Sure.
As your department grows and maybe looking out to 2014, 2015, we have the ability to contract out your services to other governmental entities for operational audits, similar to how the auditor of state operates?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman. Yes, we do intend to do that. We've looked at it. I've talked to a few people that are finance directors and school treasurers in the county, and they do see a need for that service in particular instances where they don't have there's something they want looked at. They have the expertise, but maybe not the time, and they don't feel the need to hire an internal auditor for an entire, for a full-time position. So it would be something that I think maybe in 2014, maybe even the end of 2013, if we could expand to start to offer those services on a contract-by-contract basis and charge for those services as well.
Would you look, Mr. Chairman, would you look as creating a unit that does this if you assess the demand may be there, or incorporate your own staff on an as-needed basis?
I would probably incorporate my own staff on an as-needed basis, knowing that we would need to expand that staff.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question about the effect that you may have on our external audit from, say, the state auditors. Would there be any economic savings by having an internal audit, working with the departments, making it easier, faster? And I'm guessing if there's some audit work that you've done that may shortcut auditors' scope?
Through the chair to the councilman, I would not, at least initially, anticipate that. They're looking at a very high level, and their focus is basically to opine on your financial statements at a very high level. We're working at a very detailed level involved in each individual department. What could potentially result is they will have the ability to review our audit work and to review our audit reports. They may then follow up on something, or they may guide their testing a little bit different. I would see us supplementing that work rather than supplanting anything that they're doing.
Would it create any economy in the billing of the external audit? I was just kind of guessing at it. No.
Guessing at it, and at this point, no, I don't see that. I don't see that. They have a completely different, focus.
The next question is related to the Inspector General. Is there any relationship on any findings that you might develop, referring those to an Inspector General if there is some suspected wrongdoing? Or
we've met with them on occasion already, and we're kind of working at it probably on a case-by-case basis. It's going to depend. Our understanding is that they've become more of an investigative, where we're more of a planned audit. So when we put together a plan, we're following up on that versus following up on what may be a phone call or a hotline type of tip, I guess you could say. On a case-by-case basis, we will be sharing information. Right now, we're working on another audit, one that's just getting started, that we're sharing a lot of information with them already. They have the investigative abilities and we have the audit abilities, so we're kind of working together. But it's going to be case-by-case. There may be some that we've pretty much have gotten to a point where we're ready to say, you know, there was some. We don't go in looking for fraud, but if we were to find fraud or misappropriation, if we've built our case, we may just take that directly to the prosecutor. But we may have to use their services as well because they're more an investigative type operation.
Thank you.
My understanding is that internal audit is more preventive in nature, and
Yeah.
that the idea is to find areas where risks are high and controls are not as strong as they should be, and by finding those things, they can be tightened up before things would occur that would have to go to the Inspector General. So that's hopefully how the two might work in coordination with each other. Other questions for internal audit?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman, to add to Mr. Jimana's statement regarding the roles and responsibilities of the internal auditor. We've heard some issues regarding hiring timelines and practices and what have you from an operational standpoint. That would be a classic example of an operational audit that the internal auditor could conduct to determine current practices and make recommendations for best practices. And obviously the Sheriff's Department has a different protocol than other agencies, but that would be an example of an internal audit function.
And that would be something that you would look and do comparisons to other agencies for timelines and things like that. So you would focus specifically on an operation and how, if it's meeting the expectations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And we now come to our final presentation of the afternoon from our incoming and current prosecuting attorney, Tim McGinty.
Thank you.
Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon.
Congratulations on your election.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here, Madam President, and all members of council. It's going to be an honor to serve as your county prosecutor. And this is my first budget meeting I've ever been to. As a judge, of course, I never had to have this experience. So I appreciate your patience, and my understanding is that I'm first to give you an update of what I intend to perform over this next year, and indeed aiming for the next 4 years. My intention is to reorganize the prosecutor's office to reflect the recommendations made by the best practices studies we've received and we are going to receive. We have 2 in progress right now. One, a volunteer study of experts, and another update of a Justice Management Institute report, which has been expedited, which are giving it. I expect to give us recommendations for major changes to make the office and our criminal justice system and lead the criminal justice system into a more transparent, effective, data-driven, performance-measured, business-like operation. The core activities that we're going to be advancing immediately would be to initiate these reform measures, which will result in efficiencies and hopefully further effectiveness. The first thing we want to do is take another look at our criminal justice system and how it operates in the county, particularly on the felony level. The central booking initiative that the sheriff and other agencies have been working towards for some time is about to happen with your approval. I saw some of the online with Sheriff Reed. This is an amazing alignment of the stars for the criminal justice system. This gives us the opportunity to front load the system, become more effective, and analyze these cases as they come in, instead of a month or 2 months later. we can achieve better justice early and in a less expensive manner. We can analyze the risk of these individuals as they come in and reduce the cost. And we plan on being there 24/7 with the central booking, the county prosecutor's office. Instead of waiting for the cases to come to us, we plan on being there physically or virtually to analyze these individuals as they come in. Look at the case as it arrives. Look at the facts of the case, the danger that the case exposes to the public and the community, and in conjunction with the individual's past. The 4 out of 5 that come into Sheriff Reed's jail here have been here before. With other analysis, we can see quickly other background information, if they've been treated by the Board of Mental Retardation or mental health agencies and that type of thing. That's another 10% of the population we can analyze. We look at the end result now of our criminal justice system, and 80% of the cases end up disposed as low-level cases. Felony 4 or 5s are misdemeanors. 18 and going on 20% they reject are misdemeanors. We would like to look at those cases early, perhaps not charge to the highest level possible, which has been the practice of most prosecutors across the country. You know, you do it like a law school test. What do these set of facts, what statutes do they potentially violate? If you have the young fella, 18 years old, steals the neighbor's bike out of the detached garage, that's a potential, by the law school test, an aggravated burglary felony of the first degree. We don't want to charge him with an aggravated burglary of the first degree. Number one, it's not fair. Number two, it's a theft is what it boils down to. And we don't know the mitigation in the case. And why throw an attorney on there with although in our current system or past system it's been delayed a month at cost of thousands of dollars, keep this young man in jail, most probably young man in jail for a month or two at considerable cost per day. Costs can range estimates anywhere from $60 to $100 per day total system cost. In a jail, when we can look at the case, if we're there, and the police and the prosecutor and hopefully the defense attorney within eventually a 24-hour period can evaluate this case and say, this young man has a minimal record. We don't want to lay a felony 1 on him. We don't want to put the cost of the attorney on him. We do not want to leave him in the county jail. We do not want to take the time out of City of Cleveland, for instance, detectives who don't have the time to investigate real cases to work on this case. We want to receive whatever mitigation. Maybe the kid next door stole his bike, so he's stealing that bike to make it even, or whatever the case may be. Or he's got these mental impairments. We want to do that all right away, evaluate the case, and if it fails to settle into an early disposition court, at least bypass the grand jury, go to an information, charge what we really expect to get out of it would be a theft, which would be, if it's an expensive bike, it would have to be an expensive bike, it would be a felony of the 5th degree. Most likely it would be a misdemeanor, and I'd send it back to the city prosecutor right then and there. Or put them into a diversion program, drug program, whatever it may be called for, and have separate tracks for the mentally impaired of whatever variety. What I want to do is not only just to save money, but we want to save resources. The police resources have been grossly wasted. And as a result, also the county prosecutor's offices, individual manpower. We have seen failures in the past in our system, and I want to correct that. The Anthony Sowell case was a magnificent failure, but there are thousands of other cases. Sowell was caught early in his spree, and he could have been stopped. He could have been stopped on December 8, 2008. He wasn't. He was released, and he went on to continue stacking bodies like cordwood in his premises there. He should have been caught much earlier, and a more focused system would have. We could go into additional examples on a low-level case. A gentleman named Reginald Hawkins came into the news here recently. I happened to notice, looked it up. Mr. Hawkins is an example of a low-level case that we would like to focus on. not just murderers or rapists like the likes of Sowell. Sowell, they never did a record check on. Nobody checked this guy out. They dumped him. And it was an excellent case. They could have won that case right then and there. It's an enormous cost to the county, that mistake. But let me go to a low-level, more common case of which there are thousands of. Mr. Reginald Hawkins' case is pending now. Mr. Hawkins had a long criminal career. He began in 1983 with his first case, which was a homicide. It was pled down to manslaughter with several other people. You couldn't tell who pulled the trigger type of case, and they all ended up with a manslaughter. He had a long sentence, up to 99 years. He was released by the parole board after 5. He's had over a dozen, probably 18 indictments since then. His last release from prison was in early this year, in May. He had involved in a crime, released, or rather he left blood behind at a break-in, is the police accusation on this gentleman now, and he broke into a city garage, left blood behind, took with him a great number of machines, leaf blowers, things that could be sold quickly at great expense to the city. They took a couple months. We have kind of a slow identification system, which I was at a meeting today, we're working on that to accelerate it to weeks to do DNA analysis in the medical examiners. By the way, I can speak on behalf of the medical examiner. He's sick. I can provide his excuse. He is actually ill today. But they identified this man, the depositor of the blood at the scene is Hawkins. Now, Hawkins came through our system. He was released on a $750 bond, $7,500 down to 10%. And I would predict there'll be further trouble before Mr. Hawkins is, or further difficulty bringing him to trial before he's brought back in to face trial on these additional charges. The people who are out on those type of cases, according to the Justice Department, pose the highest risk to the community. They're the most likely to recommit crime. I want to focus on a fellow like him as he comes in, get a high bond on him, assign a prosecutor, work with the police to make sure we have the evidence, and prosecute him quickly before we have more what we refer to as unnecessary victims. We will improve the performance of the criminal justice system, and ourselves and our office. We intend to be data-driven, goal-oriented. For instance, if we achieve a goal, which I am proposing to, 2 goals I'll discuss, just for example. Yes?
Mr. esteemed prosecutor, we're working our way through your presentation at a very slow rate. We need to be concise. It's been a long afternoon. We know there's a lot to get through, and we want to hear a lot, but it has to move a little bit.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your direction. 2 goals. One would be to reduce county jail stay to 30 days, cut it in half by a more effective criminal justice system, and we'll put our part in there to save money. The second is to generate $10 million in savings in reimbursements by advancing this criminal justice system reform, improving the collection of court costs, fines, restitution, which would go not included in that $10 million, but then the repayment of attorney fees and costs of investigation. We intend to put 10 more into your control and expenditures you won't have to make in 2013 by this new business-like approach. We are going to make some new hires. One will be a chief of staff to help this transformation of the culture into this performance-measured business-like operation. We appreciate your evaluation of our ask, and I would be happy to answer any questions, or with the help of my staff, any particular questions you have.
When we got to the point where I was really looking for it, then you didn't say much. I would really like I would really like some explanation of the specific things that you're asking us to do and why they're needed.
All right.
I'm sorry if I was not clear. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
No, you were. I apologize. I was not a part of council's discussion with the former county prosecutor, retired county prosecutor Bill Mason's, regarding the Archer study. The Archer study and the results have not been produced yet, although we've met with them and we have an estimate of 1.5 added to that budget. You are more privy to those discussions than I am and have a better understanding than I do of what that requires. The staffing is 1.1 to help with this front loading, help with this chief of staff position, and other positions we're going to bring in. From the bottom, we have 11 or 12 openings. We're anticipating another half dozen, perhaps, leaving because of changes in the law, early retirement. From the bottom up, we'd like to start with investing in the community in a different fashion, bringing minorities in who are unrepresented. The easiest the easiest cost hire would be 5 law clerks, which we intend to recruit and have started to recruit from the law school, and minorities. We want to improve the minority hiring performance in the office, and we want to do it all the way up to the supervisors and upper echelon positions in the office. There's some other budget items that I'd be happy to go into specifics with, or we can answer with particulars if there's any specific questions.
Could you explain? I've been unclear about this for a number of months, and I see it's on your list. Could you explain this item about moving the mortgage fraud unit from the $442,000 item? Can you explain
All right.
what that is and why it's being proposed?
Fran McAdee will answer it in better fashion with more knowledge than I will.
Good evening. In 2012, Bill Mason transferred $5 million of the DTAC reserve to the Community Land Reutilization Bank. It was critical, the timing of that was critical because the state was offering a 1-for-1 match. So shorting $500,000 really would have cost the land bank $1 million. However, according to the ORC, a transfer of that magnitude required a reserve balance of 20% of the previous year's operating expenditures. At mid-year, when we took a snapshot, it appeared that we had to move the mortgage fraud unit, which had been funded by DTAC, into the general office in order to comply with the ORC.
And that $10 million has and will do considerable good to the community with tear downs and other issues, and it was an opportunity that understandably couldn't be missed. And the money came from fees regarding these foreclosures and the filing.
Since they've already been transferred, now since the transfer, we have calculated projections, and we have backed off, expense adjusted back into DTAC about $100,000. Conservatively, we're projecting for 2013, 14, and 15 about a $200,000 revenue surplus, which we would use to offset the cost. The total cost of the unit is over $600,000. We were asking for the difference. Now, if the surplus is greater, we can use that to offset further.
Other questions for the county prosecutor? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We do have a question, and it is from Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to the prosecutor. In looking over, since you've taken over, and I know you haven't had much time, but do you see anywhere that we would need the staff that you have there? Do they need an increase in salary?
Absolutely, and that's what we anticipate from the Archer study. They've given us a preliminary indication that they want to bring it in line with, in conformity with other prosecutors' offices around the state and country.
I know it was mentioned in our previous budget, so I just wanted to see if you had the same outlook. And to understand your chart, how many staff do you have now? I believe it says full-time employees in 2013 are 19.
There are approximately 220 on the attorneys and 120 perhaps in staff, minus those who have left. I haven't replaced any positions since I took over until I have a chief of staff and the other first assistants to participate in that selection process of getting the best talent available.
So number 3 on this chart is just what is basically requirements that you need, additional staff that you will need. Do you want an actual breakdown of that number? Well, I'm just wondering, is that what is suggested here on the requirement sheet?
Yes.
That's additional staff that you're looking to hire?
That is correct. It's staff and the other component.
And these are the areas.
Oh, you can explain, Phil.
Could you give us your name for the record?
My name is Fran McEntee.
Okay. Okay.
There are 6 areas that that Prosecutor McGinty is looking to concentrate on. One is to correct the management structure of the office, the justice reform initiatives, ICAC and human trafficking. He has a diversity plan. There were critical vacancy positions, and we also did take into account a 2.5% vacancy rate, which we were reducing the staffing cost by. That's what's in the $1.4 million figure.
I guess I'm just wondering if you're proposing changing how you're going about prosecuting people, which is a good thing. Saying it's not, I like your ideas that you shared with that. Then I'm guessing we don't need quite as many staff if we're not sending quite as many people away. So I'm just wondering which program you're going to try to implement first. Are you going to try to implement the program where you're maybe possibly looking at a diversion program or something like that?
Well, that's an excellent point, and you're looking at the long run, Councilwoman Conwell. In the long run, this will cost us less. We will need less staff. There will be less people going to trial. There will be far less cases going to the grand jury. There will be less cases going upstairs if we can get the court and the other agencies to adopt or re-adopt this early disposition court concept and front-loading system. The sheriff and the police are going to be enthusiastic partners in this. We're going to start with entirely the Cleveland Police the first 9 months, and which is the major supplier of the cases and victims in Calgary County. 62% of the cases that come in are from Cleveland. 70% of the violent and serious cases are from Cleveland, and that's where we're going to focus this early analysis with the partnership with the police. We're going to put staffing up front, supervisors up front. We're not going to have low-level, inexperienced people. We want to have people that actually can recognize and properly evaluate these cases early on. And we're going to assign them a number 1 to 100 in terms of dangerousness. Below 20, we don't even want the case. We want to send it back to the municipality, keep it there. They'd get better. The municipality be better served handling it there. Then when we get to 80 and above, and particularly 90 and above, we're dealing with a dangerous, habitual, violent, and violent criminals, and we want to allocate resources. We will all become more efficient, and our system will be less expensive in the long run. The initial costs, the startup costs, are higher.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Simon.
Thank you. I just have a couple comments. In reviewing the prosecutor's budget the last 2 years, we've seen historically that there's a carryover what the council has appropriated and what was used. So there was always money that wasn't used. So I'm hoping when we look at this budget, we can take a look. Yes, but we can talk about that later. But that's what we've seen historically. In terms of the early disposition, I just want council to be aware that there's some concern from the defense bar that some of the alleged perpetrators will not get their due process because they're being pushed through the system. And the prosecutor is aware of this debate that goes back and forth. So I just want the council to be aware that there is a different side to that I think we probably need at least to hear from a different perspective when we're looking at this. Although at the end of the day, I think reform's necessary, but I just want to make sure that all perspectives are reviewed.
Those are good points, Councilwoman. There are two different perspectives, and we all can agree that they should receive counsel within the constitutional requirements. Mm-hmm. We have a federal case right now where there's a class action case against the county, and that's an issue we're going to face. We have been historically slow in assigning counsel. We've been historically slow in preserving the accused's constitutional rights. We are going to protect that, and it's to the county's best interest to do so because we can eliminate these cases of marginal significance, innocent, and overcharged. But we can't do a thing if we continue our historical pattern of waiting a month to assign counsel. All those innocent people sit in jail and at great expense while we wait this traditional period of a convenient assignment, which has a variety of reasons, some good and some bad. We're encouraging the public defender to join us early, get up in the morning, work the weekends, get here and represent the indigent individuals. That's what we're encouraging. I don't want to sound like I'm the public defender. I am the county prosecutor, but our job will be easier and we'll achieve justice sooner if we get the innocent out of jail faster, or these individuals who are rehabilitatable in these special avenues now, back on the street, back to their job, back to their family as quickly as possible. And we can focus on these individuals that we perceive from their history and the facts pose great danger to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I just want to say that at Justice Affairs next month we'll be meeting, and I'm going to be inviting both the prosecutor, congratulations officially, and the public defender, so we can really hear both sides of this issue since council has to weigh in with regard to the budget.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your concern. Thank you.
I would point out that in the third quarter estimate, the county prosecutor's budget is $25,743,000 in the general fund, and the current projection is $26,156,000. So there's a little bit of a shortfall. The usual pattern doesn't hold. It's reported as primarily related to the fringe benefits budget and reflecting increased costs in the employer share of health care costs, which is something that has been seen in almost all of the departments and not just this department. So it doesn't appear that the prosecutor's office has a carryover to work with this time, which they have had it in the past, but apparently not this time. Other questions for the prosecutor's office? Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the
Did you have
prosecutor.
more? Oh, okay. Okay.
You
And
done? Okay.
yeah, please proceed.
Welcome and congratulations. Most of the testimony today has been on the criminal side. And as you know, we're a new government, and of course, the prosecutor's office was not included in the new charter. So on the civil side, not much has been said. How do you view your relationship, the civil branch, with our law department?
Well, I hope to establish, and we are in a process of establishing a good relationship and a partnership with the law director. I think it's a good thing. This new addition to county government, the law director, to advise you and represent you and the executive. And I plan to work with this excellent choice of the executive and council and closely in all these issues. I think we've begun with a good relationship, and I hope to develop a different relationship than has already occurred between the two parties.
Good news.
Right.
Okay. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Councilman. And again, congratulations.
Thank you,
McGinty. My question probably really is more directed to OBM, and I think I saw them trickle out as the questions were asked. But as I look at your budget, there was a $101,000 update to the budget as a result of the controlled services. And it just hit me that we've been seeing this over and over, and I know Wade Steen said that they were going to deal with this. But I was just wondering what the number was across all of these different departments. Did that have some impact on the? Oh, I thought they all left. Oh, great.
No, Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we addressed this yesterday, if you recall.
Yeah.
We backed out the embedded data charge lines in general fund budgets only. So for the prosecutor, I think it's less than $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So all in, it was about $7.9 million reduction in those dispersed data charge budget lines. But remember, we moved in the IT budget, $15.7 million, and we're going to draw revenue from other funding sources through the existing charge plan from other funding sources, which will be the remainder of that $15.7 million consolidation. So any departmental budget that had a general fund component with the data charges embedded, that was zeroed out. It's the same case with the prosecutor's budget. They're still getting services provided by IT, and there's still a cost. And we're still going to show what that cost is through the indirect cost plan process we already have in place. So there will be transparency. You will still be able to see how the IT cost is being allocated across county agencies, including the prosecutor.
Okay. And I'll save my questions for Justice Affairs. I will save any questions for you for Justice Affairs when we meet.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman.
To Director Rubino. On the presentation, we have these 5 items. The Archer study results estimate, which I understand is not at all included in the budget at this point.
Correct.
But the mortgage fraud unit transfer to general fund is included in the budget.
Mr. Chairman, the mortgage fraud unit move is in the projection because it's already occurred in 2012, but it is not in the proposed 2013 update. It's still mirrored as a request in our numbers. So all the additional funding is showing up in the request data, but not in the proposed 2013.
So we would have to provide additional money for that to occur, is that correct?
For that to occur, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And the staffing, I presume, is not in the budget. And item 4 is termination payouts, $162,000, and budget line CFS $45,000. I'm presuming those items are also not.
They're not in the proposed 2013. One point on the payouts. we may be seeing this occurring in other areas within the county. I think we probably need to take a more holistic look at what employees could be leaving next year because of the changes to PRS, and maybe address that issue of payouts systemically, because I think the large courts, Court of Common Pleas in particular, are looking at potential retirements also. So I think we may treat that separately from this budget process, knowing that there are going to be other requests to cover retirement payouts going into 2013.
Okay. Any other questions for the prosecutor? Okay, well, thank you very much. We look forward to your assistance in improving the quality of justice and catching the bad guys and moving us forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, counsel. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Let the good guys go.
Okay. Well, this brings us to the end of the day. Councilman Brady.
Mr. Chairman, it's not a really big matter, but I must have missed it. I know I was out of the room once in a while, but was HR here or rolled up into something else? Or
HR was not included. It's interesting. What occurred is that there really aren't any issues regarding their budget directly. However, they're involved in the issues relating to everybody else's budgets, and we did not anticipate that. So,
okay.
So
all
that is why.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment about tomorrow morning? I think Mr. Brady's going to sleep in the back rather than having to go home because we're going to. If we could get started right, like a couple minutes before 9 o'clock, because we have a presentation and we have a tour. We'd like to get done by 1 o'clock, because you have a meeting. So if everybody could really try and be here on time, and if you're not going to be here on time, we're going to go ahead and start. And if you could stay in touch with, I'll leave my cell phone on, or Mr. Nani, and you can catch up with us, at the tours or whatever. Here, we're going to start with the presentation here, and then we're going to go on the views of the building. But if some people are running late, they could just, catch up with us at the tour.
How long is the presentation?
Do you know how long the presentation is?
I don't, it'll depend on how many questions there are and all that stuff, but it should be 20, 30 minutes. Quick, but.
Okay, but if we really could get started on time, and I know it's going to be another long day. This is like having a jury trial.
Okay. Before we adjourn, I just want to talk process for a minute. Once again, I'm asking that everyone who has proposals for amendments to this budget as it currently stands, including the administration, to get them to me by email by the close of business this coming Monday. And also I encourage informal discussion in the meantime. And what I'm going to try to do, the next meeting of this committee will be in the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday the 27th, the day of the next council meeting, at which time we're supposed to do the amendments. So I'm hoping that in consultation with my colleagues that I'll find out which of the proposals seem to be consensus. And for the ones that are consensus, we'll prepare a substitute resolution of this budget proposal, which would include all the consensus items. And for the items where there's a difference of opinion and need to be voted upon, well then, after we accept the substitute, whoever would like to put their proposals forward and have them voted on separately, we would do so, and whichever ones of those receive majority support would also be included into the resolution. And then hopefully on the 27th we would pass it out of committee, and hopefully we'll have it on the agenda pending committee report, and it would go for second reading on the 27th and for final approval at the last council meeting of the year on December 11th. So that's kind of the process we have in mind from here.
Mr. Chair? All right, let me see if I understand this. So the executive gives us a budget that's got a $28 million Health and Human Service deficit. Any amendments we make, so we're going to mandate to the executive how he's going to operate his business? Is that how I'm understanding this? We're going to go back with proposals and amendments to a budget he's going to have to live by, and he has yet to present anything? I'm just trying to understand it. That's how I'm perceiving this.
I've been in discussion with Director Rubino, who is going to be talking to Director Warner and others from Human Services, and I believe that they're going to come back to us with some suggestions on how we should proceed within the next few days. And the sense of what I get is that we may make, we probably will make some adjustments in this budget to try to get the expenditures and the resources closer in line. But the intent would also be to initiate a pretty intensive planning process over the next few months to determine what the things are that we need to do over the next 2 or 3 years, so that we resolve the deficit and get things in line. And the sense is, as Director Warner said before, we've seen projected deficits before and we've dealt with them, but it's also the case that as Director Rubino has told us, that the reduction in state and federal revenue and the reduction in property tax revenue due to reappraisal, that these are somewhat unprecedented events, and that we are going to have to deal with it, but it doesn't all have to be done as part of this budget resolution. So we're gonna hear what they're proposing, and our input is also very important. It's a joint process, and hopefully together we're going to come up with both an approach to this budget resolution for 2013 and also some agreement as to a process that we would use going forward to bring a fuller resolution over the intermediate term.
Well, then I might, if I may continue, then I might argue, if there's no sense of urgency, let's at least go until the December 11th meeting. Let's let the proposals come in from the executive on the 27th, hear what they are, have a time to digest them, and then discuss it on the 11th. There are some significant issues here. I've never been involved in an organization where the board of directors is telling the executive how to run the business, and that's what we're being put in a position to do. So I'd like to see what the executive's proposals are, and not feel rushed to have to adopt them. This is a significant policy matter that the fund will run out of money by mid-2014. By their own admission, in there in 2015, there's I think a $19 million deficit, if I'm remembering correctly, in the Health and Human Service levy. I think it's too important for us to feel rushed to make a decision by the 27th.
To our council president, would you be willing that we spend more committee time and that we pass the budget on second reading suspension on December the 11th, rather than passing it on second reading on the 27th and on third reading on the 11th?
Well, to the extent I concur with Mr. Greenspan, we've got to get some information back from the administration as to how they're going to make these adjustments. They've told us there's some deficits, but we've got to get some direction from here. There's, other than Mr. Steen was here, but we can't make these decisions. So if we have to do it on second reading on the 11th, that's fine. I think we can take all the time we get, but we've got to get some input back from the administration.
Is there a specific, if I can just add to the discussion, is there a deadline we have to have this passed by the end of this year?
That is what the ordinance says, that we need to pass the budget by the end of the year. However, I mean, we could legislatively modify that, and because of the fact that we already have a budget in place, I think if we needed to, we could extend it, but we would have to provide at least a temporary amendment to the legislation that we passed establishing the 2-year budget process in order to authorize that, but we could certainly do so.
We can't be forced into making some decisions. I mean, we can give them a budget and they say we're not going to do that. I mean, we're in a kind of a position here where we've got to get some input from the administration.
Well,
and we could always have a special meeting after the 11th before the end of the year. Because these are, I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but these are, we talk about Health and Human Services and the value that it provides, and some members of council feel this is why we're here, is to help provide those services. So to feel rushed into making decisions can impact potentially thousands of residents of this county's lives. I don't feel comfortable in feeling rushed into it.
Chairman.
Yes.
We do have some pretty big stuff on our plate. Be touring buildings tomorrow, and this is a lot. We're meeting a lot, and I don't want to delay to delay, but I only heard yesterday, and I don't think I'm the only one who only heard yesterday about these projected deficits. And I don't mean just people on council, but I mean people in the administration. And so, it could be that, this could be done, but before we recess or whatever you want to call it. But I think we should definitely hold out the option that we may not be finished.
Okay. Well, hearing what people have said, what I'm going to suggest. I still would like, if people have, there's the big macro problems that we're trying to deal with, and then there's these, in the grand scheme of things, relatively minor things like where Councilman Gallagher is proposing that we create a modest-sized fund to assist with the PSAP consolidation programs. And so what I would like to ask people to do is that people who have these kind of modest proposals to try to get those to me as suggested by Monday, so that we know what those are. And then what we'll do is that we'll come back on the 27th, and by then, hopefully, we'll have some recommendations from the administration, hopefully well in advance of that date, as to how much they would like to do with this document in terms of the human services situation. We'll discuss and digest the amendments, and not move the resolution out on the 27th, and schedule another meeting of the committee of the whole sometime the first week in December. And if at that time we're ready to come to a conclusion, we'll come to a conclusion and send it to second reading suspension on the 11th. And if we decide at that time that we need more time, well, then we'll provide for an extension and and deal with it further as we need to. Does that sound reasonable to people?
One recommendation, and the clerk pulled up the ordinance, we have to have a budget adopted by the 15th of December. So maybe in parallel, we have legislation prepared, sent to committee on the 27th, coming out on the 11th, that if we're not in a position, would extend our own ordinance's deadline maybe into January. That way we cover ourselves legislatively. That way we don't do anything on first reading suspension. And if we don't need to extend, we don't need to extend. The legislation will die in committee.
What's the meeting of the 20th? That's property?
That's the next properties meeting. Okay. That has nothing to do with this. Okay. Okay. So I think we kind of have a game plan. Yes.
I heard Director Warner, talking about they're going to manage. I personally would like to know what the plan and what the goals are in future years. I mean, even if we went ahead and passed the budget with this deficit, before we pass it, I'd like to know what the plan is to get us in the right trajectory, if you know what I mean. Just like when we were talking about the reserves, we said if we dip into this under a certain amount of reserves, we would want a plan to how we're going to change the trajectory. And this is what we need, I need, in order to vote for a budget that's in deficit.
Well, I've actually been thinking about the exact same thing. And when we discussed the replenishment plan, we talked about the concept that you had developed, that once a situation is identified, that we would have 120 days in order to develop a plan. And I'm thinking in terms of something like that time frame. I'm thinking that the two things might come out of this process. That we might take some initial steps to move things starting in the right direction. And then that there would be an agreement among the administration and this council that in 4 months or in some time frame like that we would work together and we would come up with a plan as to how over the next 2 to 3 years we would correct the structural deficit and do so before we run out of reserves, and hopefully have some reserves left. Best case scenario, keep it at that, not go lower than the 10%. But if not, not too much under that. But that's kind of what I have in mind.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Brady knows this because he's sitting next to me today, but if you were here, you'd be privy to this too. We've been talking about some type of fundamental strategic plan to deal with this issue, and I'm working. I don't want to volunteer, but I'm working on a concept, and with Mr. Brady's insight here, and hopefully there'll be something like what you're talking about. So this may be a concept ready for discussion on the 27th, but something has to happen because we're on a bad, to use Councilman Germana's terminology, we're in a bad trajectory right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman.
I know everybody wants to go on and do the other things that they have to do this evening. I have a ward club meeting. But since the councilman referred to me, I say yes, I have been discussing in bits and pieces with the councilman some ideas of his. But I just want to say, I think we should calm down. I don't think that we're in some kind of a crisis here that we can't find our way out of. And let's just, let's just work through it and not get hysterical.
Well, Councilman, I would also express my confidence, and I would remind everybody what the director said, Director Warner, in response to your question this morning, when he said that yes, there are some significant issues that we have to deal with, but it's not a 4-alarm fire, and it's something where a professional and disciplined planning approach over a length of time is what's needed, and there's nothing that absolutely has to be done today or next week, although we could make a start if we can identify how to do that. And I think we need to put it in balance. No, it's not an emergency. Yes, we need to be disciplined and start working on it. And I think we need to find that right balance. And we don't need to be alarmed, but we do have some work to do. Anything else? Okay. Yes, Director.
Mr. Chairman, just very quickly, the legality of what we're doing, and everybody understands this on council, but just the budget is a biennial budget, is a 2-year budget. So we already have the budget in place that takes us through the end of 2013. When what we're doing right now, we're not passing the budget. This is an update to the budget, basically. And I think it's working in the sense that it's that you have an annual process, that you don't wait until December of 2013 to discover these issues. It's highlighting them. But I don't think there is a legal requirement that we have a budget that balances by the end of December or by December 15, whatever the deadline is for 2012. The budget is the 2-year budget. This is an update to the budget.
The ordinance that we passed that created the 2-year budget process requires that we pass the update by December 15th of the year prior to the second year of the budget. So it doesn't say that. It doesn't say it has to be balanced if we have reserves, but we do have to pass an update. So if we feel that we're not going to be ready to do that by December 15th, we would have to amend that piece of legislation to provide either a change in the date or some kind of an exception or something like that.
No, I fully agree. All I was highlighting is that this is an this is the budget is the 2-year budget that is already in place. This is an update. The requirement for the balance is as long as you're between those 2 years, in between the variations, that's an update process, not the actual. And especially now after the charter amendment, where even our charter has the 2-year budget process in place, so there's no question about that.
If there was a surplus, it would be much easier.
We'll allocate it to the law department.
Is there any miscellaneous business? Yes.
As you know, the Public Works Committee was rescheduled because of our council meetings on Thursday morning. So it's been rescheduled for three weeks from tomorrow. That's December 6th. So Public Works will meet at 11 o'clock Thursday, December 6th.
Okay. Has anybody signed in for public comment not related to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, no one has signed in to speak.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Yes. Second?
Unanimous.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for your cooperation. Finished 10 minutes early.